Under construction by CPB, the M80 project is the first project in Australia to use Reconifelt on an Australian freeway.
Tonoplas is a high-performance asphalt additive made from post-consumer recycled plastics. Now, these plastics would normally have gone to landfill.
One of our aims on this project was to try to incorporate recycled product in each one of our pavement layers, and through the support of our partners, Downer and Close the Loop, and also our client, we're able to achieve this.
So whilst the environmental story is fantastic, it's all about a better quality product that we're producing.
This is the first of what we hope will be many major road projects in Victoria that incorporates Reconifelt.
This is a classic example of a CPB project connecting communities. It's Australian innovation and Australian collaboration in action for a circular economy.
And the best part is that it results in a better quality road, and at the end of life will remain 100% recyclable.
Welcome back, everyone, and I hope you've had a nice morning tea break and a chance to meet all the exhibitors and network. Now, in this session, we will be focusing on some of the more problematic waste streams, including plastics and end-of-life tires, and we will hear some practical examples of their use in infrastructure projects. We all know that collection of waste and their sorting into respective streams is imperative for their reuse and remanufacturing. Tony Circelli is the head of Recycling Victoria, the organisation that provides leadership and oversight of Victoria's waste and resource recovery services to support the circular economy. I'd like you now to join with me in welcoming Tony to the stage.
Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. Look, thanks very much for that welcome, and thank you again for MTIA and ecoligiQ for inviting me here to speak with all of you today. And what I'm going to do is outline a little bit about Recycling Victoria. We're very new, so a little bit about what we do and some of the programs that we're bringing online to build confidence and growth in the circular economy that we're all very, very interested in, of course. Some of the latest market performance issues focused around Victoria, around particularly some of the material sectors that are of more interest to the infrastructure sector, and probably also building on some of the introductory remarks around what we want to be as well, which is around collaboration and around partnership as well, and some of the programs that we've got in place for that. Now, I'll try to get that going. Thank you. But I do like starting on this slide and building a little bit from what Craig's talking about around the lack of sustainability and the unsustainable situation that the world is really finding itself in. This is a diagram that's taken from the Circularity Gap report that many of you might have seen. You can't read the words on this, but effectively all you need to see is this line's going upwards to the right on a pretty linear fashion in a pretty unsustainable manner. What it's showing is in 1972 we were extracting across the world something like about 28 million tonnes of material, extracting, using, transporting, and the blue shaded areas where we are at the moment, it's reached 100 billion tonnes of material per year. And what this report does for the first time, it's been reporting this for the last 3 or 4 years, is showing the level of circularity, like how much of this material actually gets put back into the system and how much of it goes to waste. And the picture's not great. The picture is that we're wasting over 90% of material. And so our circularity number is actually going backwards, unfortunately. It started at around about 10, 11%. 2 or 3 years ago when they were reporting. It's now on the latest report this year, it's down to 7%. I think also, as we all know, what's really important at the outset of this is to understand the link of how we use materials and the link to global greenhouse gases. The reason we've got a global greenhouse situation is because the way we live and the materials that we use. So this report demonstrates that around 70% of all global greenhouse gas emissions are directly related to material extraction, handling and use. And it also shows on a no regrets scenario that if we were to cut material use just by 28%, we would reduce our greenhouse gas emissions by 39%. And probably also going on this, there's a really interesting CSIRO report from last year that showed if we were able to improve our resource recovery rate by just 5%, we would add an extra $1 billion to Australian GDP. So this is a sustainability challenge, it's a net zero challenge, but it's also an economic challenge for us as well, or opportunity. Craig put up some other parts of the National Waste Report, but I like this one just to show that the overall state of recycling and resource recovery in Australia. It's around about 63%. I did see something this morning that the Americans, Biden just announced a massive investment in the resource recovery and the recycling system in America. They're currently at 32% across the states. And they're looking to get to 50% by 2030. So I think as much as there's opportunity, I think we should also recognise the amazing work that's happened over the last 10, 15, 20 years to build this sector as a platform to how we need to go further. Victoria is actually doing okay from a national perspective. It's, if you take out ash from coal fire and just look at the normal waste metrics that we normally measure, C&I, C&D and municipal waste, it's actually right at the top. It's in the top 2 performing states in Australia at the moment. A great base to get us to the next level, which is 80% resource recovery by 2030. And probably just again, a shout out for the Recycle First policy and ecologiQ and MTIR. It's a clear example if you can build certainty and confidence in the sector through understanding what you have to do, so specifications, creating the demand, like there's a gate to participate in government contracts here that's been created by a change in the operating rules. And also I think, certainly from my background coming from South Australia, the frustration of working with a system like the Titanic. It's moving in the same, one direction. It's very difficult to shift that in the way people make decisions around infrastructure, and to have a team here in Victoria, I think is an amazing opportunity and an amazing benefit that Victoria has, which the other states I don't think have at the moment. And I think that all up is really just creating that certainty. And we can see there's some of the great innovation and some of the great uses that we're seeing for the first time here in Victoria because of that new framework. But why are we here? So going from good to where we don't want to be, this wasn't looking so great 5-6 years ago. Craig talked about the changes to the international waste movements, China refusing to take our waste, and so should they. We should have been we should have been preparing for this and looking at how we could use our materials better for some time previous to that crisis happening. We ended up with great stockpiles, and of course when you have stockpiles like this, you're going to get fires. And we had fires, and we had a great sense of community loss in faith and trust in the system. And that's always a great platform. I was going to say burning platform, but it's a great platform for governments to act. And this didn't just happen in Victoria. This happened right across Australia. I know certainly from South Australia's perspective, we were caught up in this as well. It's great that out of this, what they identified is there was a very incomplete set of understanding around the market. There was no leadership in Victoria around looking at the whole state of the market. It was done by regions. And there was no ability for the state to intervene. And it's a really interesting move that the Victorian government have made to create Recycling Victoria to for the first time, actually have not a market regulator, but certainly a market oversighter, and with tools to really ask questions of the sector, and importantly, to build resilience and to build reliability in the sector that gives us all confidence to invest. Without that reliability, without that confidence and certainty, no one is going to put a dollar on the table. So just very quickly about us, it stems from the Recycling Victoria New Economy Policy, which was released in February 2020. It has a whole range of different initiatives that the state government has put in place. with that common goal to transform Victoria to a more sustainable, more circular economy future, and also as a key contributor to meeting its net zero ambitious net zero target by 2045. It's put investment in the system, in the sector, in particular infrastructure across the state and in all the material streams, and has set that goal for us in terms of having an 80% recovery rate by 2030. It is also important, there's an act now that's been passed and that we are created, my position's created under, which really does highlight that it's not going to be one group that brings Victoria to a more circular situation. There is a need for everyone to take shared responsibility here and to work together and to collaborate. And I think some of those words at the start of the conference around partnership and collaboration, they're easier to say, they're sometimes quite hard to do, but that's certainly part of our DNA and part of what we want to bring to the sector. I won't talk too much about the functions, just given time, but we range from collecting data and insights and market information so we can give that to both government in terms of creating policy and further legislative change, but also, of course, to the sector to give confidence to the sector about where the opportunities are and also the issues and that might need to be taken into account if they are to invest in there. Things like a 30-year infrastructure plan, which we're looking to deliver by middle of next year for the Minister, to really look at each of the material streams, what's been supplied, what do we expect to be supplied into the market, into the marketplace, and what level of capacity for processing do we have in the marketplace, to give people that certainty of saying, yeah, that is an area we want to position ourselves to invest further. We also do some. Before I go there, just wanted to show this, really a snapshot of the Victorian situation. The trending for this, given all the work that's happened over the last 3 to 5 years, is improving. We've still got a fair bit to go if we're going to get this to 80% recovery by 2030. But what it shows is about 15.8 million tonnes in Victoria generated of waste. That is increasing. That increased by 1% from the previous year. One of their targets in the Recycle Victoria New Economy policy is to reduce the amount of waste per capita. That is a really challenging thing to do, and we're certainly not trending on target for that at the moment. But the good news is the more we're generating, we're actually getting better at recovering it as well. So that's the good news, and of course with that comes greater economic output and also jobs, which is a great outcome from that. But looking at the breakup of that, firstly, I think just 15.8 generated, 70% recovery rate, which is up about just under 1% from the previous year. The good news, 11.1 million tonnes recovered to processing, and even better news, 10.1 million tonnes processed here in Victoria. If you look at the split of the material types, we get a lot of weight, a lot of volume and weight from the aggregate sector, and a very good recovery rate there. And the news gets worse as we go across. Organics around 50% recovered. It's a real key target for carbon. And for the amount of water and all the materials that go into producing food, it's a real target that we have to really focus our efforts on, and there's a number of programs in place around that. And as was mentioned, plastics as well. From a volume and a weight perspective, it doesn't look very high, but I think if you put this on a carbon scale, this might look a bit different. But the performance on plastics is obviously not acceptable. What are we doing? Really exciting. We're bringing in CDS to Victoria. I'm from South Australia. I came over as one of the reasons, not only, but I was really excited to be part of, it will be one of the biggest and we think the best CDS system in Australia. We're rushing towards a 1st November start date here. What's this going to do? It's going to give us more glass, high quality glass. It's going to give us more plastics. It's going to free our streets of container litter, which is obviously prevalent here in Victoria and in other states that didn't have CDS compared to where I'm used to growing up in South Australia. But importantly, it's going to give us It's one of the best examples of product stewardship I think that you can get, and we don't often talk about it in terms of product stewardship. We just talk about it as CDS. It's product stewardship that's been in place for 45 plus years. It works, and we need to apply the learnings of this to other sectors. We're obviously pretty excited with that. We're also, as many here would know, that we're bringing in a 4-bin service across Victoria. This is really accelerating at the moment. We've got over 50% of councils, around 60% of councils already have brought in the food and organics bin, the FOGO bin. And we've got about, I think it's just under 20 councils now that have brought in the glass bin. This is an example from Hobson's Bay that brought in 4-bin service. Well, they're probably one of the first, if not the first council in Victoria to bring in the 4-bin service for different reasons. It was actually prior to the SKM and prior to the waste crisis. 2018-19 was their 3-bin. If we go to 2021, which is their first year with 4 bins, and they were doing a fortnightly residual here, so collecting their rubbish bin, their residual bin every fortnight. There was a 29% reduction in their waste bill and their volumes, and their massive waste. That's a massive saving for a council. That is by far the most expensive part of the bins. And so nearly a 30% reduction in that cost. And obviously, because of that, we're getting improvements in the resource recovery with food organics increasing by 120%. You can see the green there going to 14,000 tonnes from 6,000 tonnes. A staggering change. And also we see the start of the glass coming out of the commingle bin. Going to 21-22, there was a change. They went back to weekly food and organics collection, and there was concern about losing all the benefits here, but they actually still got quite a bit of benefit. 20% reduction in their waste bill, and about 100% increase from pre-4-bin in their FOGO, and we see still a good reduction in the commingle bin and getting as much glass out of that bin. Again, more glass, more organics for the sector. And there's still a lot of issues that we've got to work through here in terms of some of those streams, but this is good. I mean, if you look at this replicated right across Victoria, this is a massive reform for the state. Now I'm just going to finish off on just stats on just the latest performance data on a few material streams. Glass is generally covered pretty well in Victoria because of the groups like Alec Fraser and others that have really been sort of national leaders in terms of reusing glass, crushed glass that comes out of our material recycling facilities here. I can't say that the same from where I've come from in South Australia. We're still trying to figure out how to do that. It's not easy because of the things we talked about, just understanding the standards, how we deal with these materials, but it's happening pretty well here. But I think there's also the opportunity with CDS and 4-stream curbside bins coming into play to how can we get more back into bottles with that, this has got to be a story about resource recovery, but also we've got to think about upcycling. Let's use that word. How do we get the highest value use from these precious materials that we use? Paper and cardboard, this is obviously a bit of a concern nationally. We've got an export ban due next year. Traditionally, a lot of this material has been exported. Victoria, again, which is fantastic, has got some really good investments coming in on play here. We've got Visy announcing just in the last month a new drum pulper that will take umpteen extra thousands of tonnes. I think it's about 100,000 extra tonnes of material to bring back into the system. And also we have another investment called Save Board that's looking at this material and putting it into construction products as well. These are the innovations. So like what's making these companies invest? It's that certainty, it's that opportunity, it's understanding with volumes, it's innovation, it's risk-taking. There's a lot in it, and we have to encourage these companies to get there and to use these materials. We've got a huge challenge with paper and cardboard, and it's good to see that Victoria, I think, is really leading the pack in terms of trying to make sure that we've got a place to reuse this material here in our state. Plastics, this is going to get more coverage. I'm not going to, it's clearly an area of opportunity. We've got 700-odd thousand tonnes being generated here in Victoria each year, and at a pretty low, dismal recovery rate of 19%. Now, the 19% is only that high because we're pretty good at recycling milk bottles and hard containers, PET bottles, from the material recycling system because they're pretty easy to recover and they're designed for that. Yeah, if you look at soft plastics, I think it was 2 or 3%. It could well be 0 at the moment. I don't know without close the loop and so forth operating. So real opportunity there, and yeah, just echoing, I think Victoria's made its intentions pretty clear too that we want to see stronger product stewardship at the national level here. We absolutely, like CDS, like ecologiQ, we want to see a consistent way of creating demand for this material back into the product that's actually first been put onto the shelf. Manufacturers, brand owners, they need to take accountability, and we're seeing a lot of people actually do this because it's part of their brand, and they want to be seen being sustainable, and their consumers are wanting it, but not everybody. And so I think it is time for some stronger product stewardship. We just have to wait and see, I guess, what that national review process ends up being like. I think we're pretty good at collecting it. We're pretty good at recovering it. We just want to make sure it's got value at the end of the day for a reuse opportunity. Some of our insights are also showing that we do see, previously there was very much organisations looking at the price of virgin materials versus the price of recycled material, virgin material often being cheaper. We're seeing that now decouple, that even though there's still probably a slight price differential, they're choosing more recycled product. Why? Consumers are demanding it, and depending on their brand and their sustainability model, their boards are probably saying we need to be at the front of this. But I think we're now at that point in time where we need everybody, as Craig mentioned, a systemic approach. We need everyone sort of in that category. And I'll just finish on tyres. Again, a good recovery rate here. I guess the bit about this, that's the opportunity for places like Victoria is most of this material has been exported for tyre-derived fuel. And this is a really valuable product. It's homogeneous. It's tricky to separate some of the layers of it, but it's a very high value material, and I've always felt that tyres really ought to be tracked better in Australia. We've got a real opportunity to use it. I've got your crumb rubber icon there, Alexis. I was really pleased to see how you're doing some extra research around this, around how you can use crumb rubber in different applications, but we're already using it in sort of infrastructure, but there's a huge opportunity here. And so really what we want, again, even though the recycling number here is great, it's 84%, we want to see the amount of material processed locally increase. So we've got 43,000 there processed locally. We want to see that increase over time with investment and with research on how we can use this material and keep the material here. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Tony.
Sure.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
I guess just before I let you go, just one quick kind of reflection. I guess we've started to use more and more of this word upcycling. And it's really nice to be able to kind of reflect on that we have to think beyond, okay, we're recycling for the sake of recycling, but we're creating value. Are you seeing more and more of that happening in your world?
Well, we are. I think programs like CDS, for instance, where we can recover material at source to a higher quality, we find higher uses. Where it's recovered at a lesser quality and we get contamination, we have to settle for lower uses. Lower uses are better than landfill, but we want to see over time, so once we get to the 80%, this journey's not over. Once we get to 80%, it's like, okay, well, let's have a look at our waste hierarchy. Let's see how we can get the most out of this material and return it back like for like. That's our ultimate goal.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank
Well,
you.
join with me in thanking Tony.